Welcome to the Think Factory podcast. We got one question for you. What keeps you up at night?
Welcome back to the Think Factory podcast, powered by OGC Solutions. I'm Chris Santamassimo, your host today. If you're interested in joining the podcast and maybe being interviewed on the Think Factory podcast, feel free to reach out and schedule an appointment with us so we can have that conversation. But for today, I'm really excited to talk with a friend of ours, Rich Vaill. And Rich is the president of Custom Marketing Solutions, LLC in New Jersey. Welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks, Chris. Appreciate the opportunity and look forward to our conversation.
Me too. I have to just thank Rich for coming back a second time. When I say he came back to the podcast, it's because I screwed up the first one and didn't get a good recording. So we're rehearsed on this, and Rich is going to do a great job as he did the first time. Rich, we were kind of drawn to each other because we were friends when you were in your prior post-military life, but really excited to talk about what you're doing now. Just to sort of set it up a little bit, what I think makes what you're doing unique is your military experience as an officer and the path that you took to get there, and then what you're doing now in the printing and promotional space. So kind of take it away.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate the opportunity, Chris. Yeah, I spent a number of years in the Marine Corps as an officer, graduated from the Naval Academy, and ventured into the world of finance and spent a long time in finance and on the institutional and retail side and in investments and banking and even some real estate, and made a career switch over back in late 2023 into the commercial printing industry. There was an opportunity to acquire a business. It was a disabled veteran-owned business, and it was just a good opportunity. I never would have thought I would find myself in the world of commercial printing, especially at this stage. But it was a great opportunity, and it has been a great opportunity. And I guess I've always been kind of drawn to marketing a little bit. From a sense of branding and messaging, so it wasn't a huge jump, but I'm loving the journey and enjoying the process, and kicks me in the teeth a little bit every day, which I guess is just part of the grind. So,
well, if it doesn't kick you in the teeth a little bit every day, that means you're not trying hard enough. I think
that's right. That's right.
Yeah. So just let's get into it a little bit more about your Marine Corps experience, because that's to me always I'm super impressed by it for lots of reasons. But I think it really becomes part of who you are. When you've had that experience, you go into the military as you did as a young man, and you come out as an adult. Talk about what that experience was like, how you grew, and of course it's going to impact how you operate in business every single day.
Yeah, I look back and I think attending the Naval Academy, and I always like to say I majored in graduation, but I. That was probably one of the most difficult things to date I've ever done, right? Just getting through the service academy, and, I tip my cap to any service academy grad. And then, venturing into the Marine Corps, and had an experience as a young man. Attended something called Boys State in high school, and it was a program to teach about politics. And this one happened to be up at Siena College, and, it was run by Marine Corps drill instructors, and I can still remember the guy. He was just made such an impact on me. He was a monster, and I just thought to myself, wow, this guy knew how to command a bunch of young men and just get us to where we needed to be and do what he wanted us to do pretty easily. And I thought, yeah, that's something that I would like to be a part of. So when I graduated from the Naval Academy, I accepted a commission as a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps, and so being a Marine is tough. Being in the military is tough from a variety of standpoint. I mean, I didn't have any family at the time. I didn't have a wife or children, and so it made it probably a little bit easier. But going through that, especially as a young man, where you're still trying to navigate and learn and grow, you're going to make a lot of mistakes, along the way, and you just try to learn and grow from it. And I deployed a couple of times. We did an operation in Liberia, and then part of the Gulf War, both with 2nd Marine Division, and then eventually got out, stayed in the reserves for a little while, and but it was just I look back and think about a lot of the Marines that I met along the way. And, I said to my daughter the other day, I said, I wish I'd stayed in touch with more of them over the years. They were just incredible, incredible individuals.
Yeah, the Marine Corps, like the other branches, really teaches you this the necessity of teamwork, right? And really, being a successful team in a difficult situation. How does that really apply to what you do every single day?
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the team, right? You function, you move as a team, and the Marine Corps, the decisions are pushed down to the lowest level, and you know, I think running anything, whether you're running a platoon or a company or a detachment or a business, it's all about leveraging the power of the team to get the work done. You can't function as an individual. You've got to function within the community of talent that you have, and once you get everybody focused on that mission, there's really nothing you can't accomplish.
Yeah, and that idea of mission first and accomplishing the mission at almost all cost. I think that also helps you when it comes to in your business life, trying to get a project done, trying to get something out for a customer, trying to satisfy a customer, because you have that objective and your mind goes immediately to how am I going to achieve that, and how am I going to get it done on time or early.
Oh, for sure. And I'm really blessed to have a lot of great people around me that I'm able to lean on. And this is a new industry for me. And I'm still, it's like drinking from a fire hose. There's just so much to learn and so much to apply. And I've got some great people around me who I can turn to for help. And without them, I would not be able to get it done. And they're really effective and really efficient in their jobs and enjoy what they do. And everybody works hard to get the client's project out the door, in the best form possible, so the client is happy and they get it on time, and they're able to continue with their mission. We're able to provide marketing materials so they can execute their mission of selling their product. So we play a major role in there.
Marine Corps teaches you to pivot too. I mean, you might find yourself in a difficult situation and have to figure something out on the fly, or maybe in a commerce situation, just figuring out what you're doing, the operational side and the substantive side of what you're doing, and then applying it right away.
I look back in my time at the Naval Academy and in the Marine Corps, they throw a lot at you. And especially as a young lieutenant, I think one of the last jobs I had was on active duty. After leaving 2nd Marine Division, I was the operations officer for the base inspector's office, and I was executing fraud, waste, and abuse investigations on base. What did I know about fraud, waste, and abuse investigations? But when I have a colonel, breathing down my neck to get an investigation done, you make it happen, right? And I knew nothing about it, but within a couple of months, I was able to figure out what he wanted and what he needed, and to make sure I had the report. And like one day he said to me, "Well, that's great. Now go brief the general." And here I am, a first lieutenant, going to brief a 1-star. And I thought to myself, I just hope I don't screw this up. And but it went well. He was a real nice guy, but the briefing went well. But yeah, they throw a lot at you and they expect you to figure it out. But again, it goes back to team, leveraging the knowledge of your team. And as a young lieutenant, you're not alone. You've got senior enlisted, senior staff NCOs and NCOs that are very experienced that you can turn to, and really they're there to help you execute that mission, and you need to leverage that information and that experience to be successful.
That's a bit like the people on the production floor that have been there for decades, that know how to get it done, and you're the one kind of putting it all together or making sure that it all gets done together, but utilizing that experience to your advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. Listening to them, asking a lot of questions, getting them involved in the process. Everyone wants to be part of the mission. Everybody wants to be part of that solution. And if you can bring your team in to get them part of that process, then they're part of the process and part of the win, right? You work together, you win together.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to lose together, but you have to pick yourself up and move ahead, right?
Right. Well, that's part of the process. You make some mistakes, you trip and fall, and everyone picks each other up, and you say, okay, let's get back on track. And what do we need? How do we correct? How do we course correct? And how do we get back to, the course where we need to be?
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about custom marketing solutions real quick, and then what I'd also like to talk about is some of the great work that you're doing to support your fellow veterans for sure. Custom marketing solutions I thought was super interesting. You're spending a lot of time with some of the smaller pharmaceutical companies in New Jersey, for example, which is a little bit of a hotbed for that business. But talk about what custom marketing does.
Yeah, I mean, we're essentially a commercial printing company, and we do work with small and emerging pharmaceuticals, some of the larger pharmaceuticals, and other veteran-owned businesses. Those are two of the niches that we've been really focused on, and whether it's branded collateral, trade show materials, promotional products, we work to help our clients stand out with high quality print marketing that commands attention for them, and that's all about what our mission is, to help them command attention. And I like to say we're the intersection of military precision and marketing expertise, and we get it done for our clients.
That's a great tagline. You might want to think about trademarking that
because we've been working
on perfect. Yeah, it's perfect. That's great. And yeah, but beyond pharma, you also represent other customers in different segments for the same type of work.
Oh, sure. And we've been doing a lot of work with other veteran-owned businesses. I've working with some law firms, and ironically, that was my background in banking. I was working with law firms on their attorney trust and escrow accounts, and working with CPA firms and 1031 exchanges and stuff that's tough. It's in the back of my brain there somewhere, But yeah, working with law firms, working with commercial real estate companies, working with real estate companies that provide utility services. I mean, it's just a variety of, once you start having these conversations, especially around, people, and this is trade show season, right? People are out doing trade shows, and all of a sudden they realize, well, we need some help, and we're able to provide support and even some strategies that we're able to, help them identify and help them put their best foot forward. But yeah, it's just, you really can work with anybody to even do some food packaging and, branded packaging. So, but there's a lot of opportunity out there for sure.
Well, when you talk about military precision, I think that's so true, because a lot of folks don't realize how much effort, technology, thought goes into producing a printed piece, making sure the colors match, making sure the text is perfect, the photos are, the finish is right. There's a lot that goes into it, but folks like you make it look easy, really.
Yeah, and I'm actually about to put a little post on LinkedIn today, and some places they do speed, some do scale, but I like to think we do strategy, right? We're really helping to guide our clients to what looks the best for them. Listen, you can get print done at a fairly, cheap or effectively priced rate, but if you want it to stand out, you need to make sure you choose the right colors and the right finishes, because that's your face, right? It's like anything. It's like when you walk into an office and the person that greets you, they play a vital role in your business. And I think the same thing with any sort of collateral. When someone gets handed a piece of collateral that's nicely finished and the colors are sharp and the message is there, that sets the tone for the rest of the sale or the rest of the process for them, because it's like a website. It's like a website, or if it's like a box or branded collateral, something that has your logo on it. When it looks right and the client picks up on it, that sets the tone pretty early on.
For sure. Well, thanks for introducing the company. What else should folks know about custom marketing solutions before we jump into some of the veteran support work that you do?
We really like to work with our clients in terms of strategy, right? We've got a lot of experience. Again, my experience is fairly recent, but my partners have decades worth of experience, and people around me have decades worth of experience. So, if you have questions, if a client has questions about, we're more than just, hey, print this. We're happy to give you some suggestions and happy to give you some insight, and based upon our experience and what works, what doesn't work. And, they should ask those questions, ask for help. we can certainly provide some insight into what we've seen.
Yeah, really putting an idea or a thought on paper or on media, and then being able to maximize the impact
Right.
when it's finished, for sure. That's great. One of the other reasons that we were reconnected and sort of drawn together was I'm so impressed by your deep grassroots focus on helping other veterans in business. Would love to hear more, for purposes of the podcast, about those efforts, and maybe how folks that listen to the podcast can help support them as well.
Yeah, it's about helping veterans in business, but also helping veterans navigate employment, leaving the service. And I think so. Back in 2003, I went back in the Marine Corps, and I was serving as the hometown link for the Marine for Life program in New Jersey, and our focus was helping Marines transition out of the Marine Corps. And I really grabbed onto that mission because there's a lot of vets that come out and they scratch their heads and now what do I do? And myself included. You come out after a while. So it's about helping other veterans navigate that, and whether that means that they're looking for a job or looking for a good employment opportunity, or I'm looking to start a business. I'm kind of what I did, entrepreneurship through acquisition. That's kind of a big buzzword now, especially within the veteran community. You don't necessarily have to start a business. You can acquire a business. Not necessarily easy, but there's certainly that option. But yeah, I mean, I like to, leverage my experiences, leverage my network. I developed a powerful network over the years of trusted advisors and other business owners. And whether a veteran is looking to get into business or looking for a job, we try to help them connect with the right people and have some good conversations to get their process started.
What is that, emotional component like when someone leaves the Marine Corps or one of the other branches and transitions to civilian life? What I know it might be different person to person, but in general, what's the feeling like?
I think that the feeling is, what do I do now? What do I do now? How can I leverage my skill set? I think a lot of, I say Marines and maybe from the Army as well. I think probably a lot of the younger enlisted come out and they say, well, I'm probably geared more towards law enforcement or security, and that's great. And it's a great career. But that's not the only thing you can do. And I stress that with anybody getting out, is that if you want to go into security or law enforcement, and that's something that you really have a passion for, go for it. It's a great career, but you don't have to do that. There's other things you can do. But I think a big challenge is, one, what do I want to do? The other is, how do I communicate what I've done in such a way that it makes sense for the person that's interviewing me, the HR person or recruiter? And on the flip side, you hope that you have an HR professional or a recruiter that actually understands the difference between a sergeant and a lieutenant, right? Or different roles in different services, or the difference between the Marine Corps and someone who served in the Air Force. There's just differences. And I was talking to a good friend of mine who was a network engineer, and he called me up one day and he said, I said I was interviewing this Air Force vet. He said he's really light on skills. He says, but I could teach him that. What I loved was his attitude. His attitude to learn, and his attitude to, kind of get after it. He said, I hired him on the spot because I knew he would be a great part of the team. But it's a challenge. You come home and you scratch your head, and I was lucky enough at the time. I didn't have a family, but if you have a wife and kids, and all of a sudden you realize you need to provide for them pretty quickly, you may be scrambling a little bit.
Do you feel like the transition doesn't start early enough sometimes when people are transitioning out?
Yeah, it depends on the situation. I mean, there could be times that you're coming off deployment, kind of leading into transition. So it really depends on where you are, what situation you're in. It can, and they try to do. They've got transition assistance programs, and I'm looking back on mine. I wouldn't say it was very helpful, but that was a long time. Like I like to say, many MREs ago, but that was a long time ago. I don't know what they're like now. I would hope they're a little bit more refined, but I think they try to teach you how to do your resume, which I think is a mistake. I think you should just get it professionally done. I don't think doing your resume is something you should be handling yourself. There's too many nuances, especially these days. But I think the transition is tough. You make your transition out, you leave, and you come home, and you look around, and you think to yourself, well, where's my mission? Where's my team? Now I need to figure that out.
Right. Yeah, as you said, when you're coming off a deployment, you might be working, crazy hours or in battle, frankly,
Right,
for,
right.
days and weeks and months. Don't even have time to think about the transition, and then you just arrive back home, and what do you do, right? You're taking
Yeah,
off your uniform, and
right,
you're
right.
taking off your identity sometimes too.
You would hope there's a little bit of time, and again, I look back on mine years ago, and I'm sure there's different policies now, but you would hope that they have a little bit of time to be able to think it through a little bit.
Hmm.
But it's tough.
Yeah, for sure. So what are some of the things that you're involved in now and the things that you've actually uh, developed yourself to help other veterans in this way?
Yeah, I think so after I left the Marine for Life program, I know a number of years later, I thought, this is something I'd still like to be involved in. So I started a group on LinkedIn called Jobs for Veterans. And we've got probably about 5,400 members at this point, mostly vets. But I request that business owners and recruiters and HR professionals, post opportunities on there. And I'm very strict on what is allowed on there. And I say I vet everybody, excuse the pun, but you have to either be a veteran or someone who's willing to hire a veteran. So it's not about network marketing, it's not about selling businesses, it's not about selling franchises, uh, or looking for venture capitalist money or funding. It's about putting job opportunities on there that are legitimate job opportunities. And it may be a 1099 or it may be a sales opportunity that's 100% commission. As long as it's a job opportunity, like a legitimate opportunity that they can leverage when they come out. So yeah, that's something I've been pretty involved in for a long time. I think it's probably over 15 years now.
And what have you seen? Have you seen people sort of come together to help one another even once they've sort of landed someplace?
Yeah, I think so. I think, we've got a pretty strong community. I think it could be stronger. I think we could come together a little bit. And I think there's a lot of groups that are trying to do that. But I think we should be looking out. Other veterans should be looking out for each other, whether it be through employment or or consulting or whatever. You try to help. If someone a vet approaches me looking for help, I try to help them as best I can. And I know a lot of other vets do the same thing.
Yeah, it's all about sort of sharing the wealth or sharing the knowledge, right? And to your point, you're not just handing something to someone who's a vet. You're really providing opportunities that they can seize.
Right. And sometimes it's just about making the right introductions. And I always tell vets, when they say, well, I'm just looking for a job. I'm like, well, that's not going to get you anywhere. You need to be as specific as possible.
Mm.
What industry do you want to work in? Where do you want to work? How much money do you want to make? What's your end goal within the industry? The more information you can provide someone, and that goes with whether you're looking to start a business, the more information you can provide to another vet or someone within your network, the better off you'll be, because it makes it easier for you to help, if they give you the right information.
Well, to the point you made earlier about needing to connect your military service with the job opportunity or the business opportunity, it's that research that is going to enable that
Right.
person. They may love the idea, and assuming that the research makes them love it more, but you still have to make that connection and be able to sell yourself. And that's the hard part, I think, sometimes for folks.
It is, and because you're a little bit unsure about how to do that. You're used to wearing a uniform and keeping your hair tight and your shoe shined, and you come out and you're like, now I got to get a suit and wear a suit and a tie, or whatever, to go into interviews, and that can be a little daunting sometimes.
For sure. I think I've talked to other veterans that talk about the loss of that, feeling of team, like you were talking about before. That's also hard part of that transition is you don't have the same camaraderie that you have in the military with your coworkers, so to speak, with the other folks on your team. How do you sort of bridge that gap as well?
That's a challenge, right? There's a challenge. I think you have to find your community, within where you are, whether it's New Jersey or New York or California. You find that veteran community some way that you can leverage. I mean, years ago it was, and still to this day, obviously the American Legion, the VFW, the Marine Corps League. I don't know how active young vets are in those. I have no idea, but you find, however you do it, you find your community, right? And of other vets that are going through it or have gone through it, but yeah, I think that's one of the challenges. I think vets when they come home is they need that team and that mission, and that's tough to find. And if you can find that within your career and within your community, it goes a long way to helping you with your transition from being military to civilian.
It's a little bit of that experience, I think, that to the point you made earlier about law enforcement. The people from the military are drawn to that because of the team aspect, because of the uniform, the identity, etc.
Right.
But it's all about showing them the other side of life and the other opportunities that there are for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. When I got out, I was where I worked at a big brokerage firm, and I kind of stumbled upon a team of other, guys my age who were not military, but it was like 8 or 10 of us, and it was just I kind of found my community. They weren't other vets, but I quickly kind of found a community, and we all worked well together, and we'd all go out together. And so I lucked out a lot when I look back, when I got out and found kind of that. Again, it wasn't even other vets. It was just, young guys like myself who were just looking to make their way and learn and grow and have some fun along the way. So I really lucked out.
Besides the obvious, Rich, of providing opportunities when they come up, like how can someone like me who is not a vet really support the community, especially the group that you put together?
Yeah, I think, if you have a vet and you know a vet, just engage with them a little bit and ask them what it is that they're, and I've said this to other HR professionals. They say, how do I interview a vet? How do I interview a young Marine or a young soldier? Or when they come out, I say, ask them about their experiences, because they'll tell you. They might not tell you everything, but they'll tell you. Say, tell me about some of your great experience. Tell me about some of the people you served. Engage with them, so they're open to having conversations, and they'll tell you. They'll want to share their stories with you, and it's a good way to get to know them a little bit. And the more you get to know them, the more you're able to help them, because then you'll think, oh, he really should meet this person, or she should meet this person. But just engage with them, sit down and just have a conversation with them, because they want to tell you their story. They're nervous, they're unsure, they're not sure what to do next. They just start by just having that story with them. Let them tell their story, and I think it's a good way to start.
It's a great idea. Well, Rich, I really appreciate the chance to share your story and share what you're doing, especially on your the veteran support side as well as your business. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Rich Vaill. It's a good way to find me. You also have a website, cmsgroupllc.com. But LinkedIn's probably the best place to find me. We have a LinkedIn page as well for the company.
And what was the group page you mentioned about veterans?
It's support? Called Jobs for Veterans. If people want to connect with
Excellent.
me on LinkedIn, I'll invite you to the group.
Excellent. Well, Rich, thank you so much for sharing today. Really appreciate it, and I hope that we can all help support what you're doing to further the cause of veterans and help them with opportunities. So I encourage everybody who listens to reach out. And just to sum it up for today, this has been Chris Santamassimo, really enjoying my time with our friend Rich Vaill from Custom Marketing Solutions in New Jersey. And this has been the Think Factory podcast. We'll see you next time.